I was pretty shocked to see Simone, who I'd been with for 5 years, topless and bouncing on one of the guys' laps in the jacuzzi downstairs. It was pretty clear from the expressions on their faces that they were actually having sex. Angry. I took out my phone and filmed it for a moment. I thought about changing into swimming trunks, but decided against it. I sat down on a chair in the room and thought, no wonder she didn't want me to go to this party with her. She'd been working as a secretary at Sing Funds, a hedge fund. I've been with her for about a year or so and she seemed really happy. Now I know why. Earlier that week I saw a message arrive on her phone saying there was a company Christmas party this weekend and she was allowed to bring her +1. When I told her about this, she tried to talk me out of going. "Carl, you'll still be bored," she said. "I don't understand this." I said, "Why don't you want me to go with you? Are you ashamed to appear with me in public?" "Of course not," she said. "They're just financial gurus. There will probably be a lot of boring talk about money and stuff." She just got bored. Her company had a habit of holding such parties about once a month, and they were always for staff only. Most of the time, Simone was gone until late at night, and sometimes even until late the next day. I never made a fuss about it, but now I had a better idea of what was going on. "I've been to these events and I see." I told her, "Maybe I'd still like to spend the evening with you." She said, "If you're going to go, you better clean your tuxedo. But I think you'll find it's not that fun on the day of the party." She suggested that I take a pair of. I suggested that we wear swimming trunks to the Christmas party, but she said it was too cold. I asked her if she thought it was too cold for swimming trunks, and she said that usually after the main party we end up at her boss's penthouse, where he has a very nice IC. I told her, "You do this often. Is this something you do often?" She said yes, almost every time. "Now promise me you'll be on your best behavior tonight." "I'm always like this." I told her it didn't sound too good. Why did she have to tell me this? "Why are you telling me this?" "Oh, it's just that these parties can get pretty wild sometimes." "Sometimes it gets pretty wild," she said. "I don't want you to be upset about what you might see. The guys there are quite friendly and can be quite cheeky, if you know what I mean." "Well, as long as everyone passes the husband test, there shouldn't be any problems, right?" I asked. In response, she smiled but didn't say anything. She kissed me on the cheek when we got to the main party. Simone introduced me to her friend Linda. "Linda, this is my husband Carl," she said. Linda looked at me and smiled. "Husband?" she asked. "You really are a wild and crazy girl. You know that, don't you?" I smiled to myself, wondering what she meant by that. Simone smiled and giggled. "I need to go chat with you, honey," she told me. "Simone said I could get you something to drink, maybe a little wine." "Come on, let's go," she said to Linda. I headed to the bar and got her some wine and a beer for myself. I looked around but didn't see Simone anywhere. I walked around looking for her, but to no avail. Half an hour later, I sat at an empty table and hoped that she would come looking for me. Meanwhile, I watched as everyone danced and generally had a good time. Nobody said anything to me. I was left to wander around as if I wasn't there at all. I think she was right. I wasn't having any fun at all. I was starting to get more than a little angry that my wife would just leave me like that after sipping beer for a couple of hours. I said this and stood up. I thought that if Simone wasn't going to spend any time with me, I'd just go home and leave her with her friends. I headed towards the entrance when Simone and Linda approached me. There were 3 other guys with them, and one of them had his arm around someone's waist. Simone didn't bother to, "Oh, here you are." She introduced me to the others, but I could tell she was drunk. "We looked everywhere for you." Yes, I thought so when she kissed me. I tasted tequila and something else. I was just about to go home since you left me 2 hours ago. "Where have you been?" I asked. She blushed. The guys next to her smirked at me, and I wanted to punch them in the teeth. We'd just had a few drinks. Linda said Simone looked at her. I was wondering what the hell was going on. "What did you drink?" I asked Simone. "I taste tequila, but there's something else." "Oh, nothing," Simone said. "Hey, listen, we're all going to Ben's house. He warms up in a hot bath. Are you ready?" "Probably," I said. "Am I going to spend some time with you, or are you planning on leaving me again tonight?" "Don't be stupid," she said. "You'll see me later. I'll go with Linda and the guys if you don't." I asked one of the guys to come with me. He grabbed her hand and dragged her away. "You can follow me, dude?" Simone and Linda followed the guys, and I heard them laughing as they left. I got into my car and followed them when we arrived. I saw that Simone had already changed into her bikini. What's going on here? When we got there, Simone had already gone into the hot tub with two guys who I later found out were named Ben and Dale. They were two senior partners of the firm. They both seemed like little more than rich frat boys to me. Linda came up to me after they went outside. "So, are you thinking that maybe we could meet later in the evening?" she asked. "What makes you think that I'm even inclined to do this?" I asked. "I'm married." "Oh," she said. "I thought you guys had an open marriage or something." "What makes you think that?" I think I asked the right questions. Simone acts differently around all the other guys. You like being cuckolded, especially the way she kissed you earlier. What makes you say that? What do you mean about the way she kissed me earlier? I asked. Well, she's already satisfied with Ben and Dale and tried them out. She said after that she kissed you. Did you like it? I almost threw up. Her expression changed when she saw my reaction. Oh my God, you didn't know? I said. How long has she been doing this? Ever since she joined the company. Linda said, Oh my God, I thought it had been more than a year since she was there and I had no idea. Is that what she did at the party? I asked. Did you have sex with these two guys and a few more people? Linda added, I'm sorry. I just assumed you knew. She really loves you, you know. Yes, I feel love. I said, look, why don't you go upstairs and change? She said, maybe she'll control herself tonight since you're right here. I said. I headed upstairs and that's when I saw her having sex with those two guys. No matter how much I loved her, there was no way I was going to put up with it. I decided to have a chat with her about it. As I walked down the stairs, Simona said, Oh, there you are. Why aren't you in a swimsuit? Come and use the jacuzzi with me. I grabbed her hand and pulled her into a room that looked like an office and closed the door. What's the matter, Carl? She asked. I said, Were you ever going to tell me about an open marriage? She asked, What did Linda tell you? I said, I played a video of her having sex with two guys in a hot tub. You just wanted to humiliate me even more after you dumped me at the party. Is it true that you had sex with those guys at the party so that I could taste them in your mouth? Come on, Carl. We were just having a little fun. Yes, I satisfied them. So what? This doesn't mean anything. I love you any less. I also slept with them. This means nothing. I couldn't believe what I heard. She admitted to having sex with them, and I just had to go along with it. It means everything. I took off my wedding ring and placed it in her hand. I then grabbed her left hand and removed. The ring is off. What are you doing? She asked. You're a pig. I hate you. I said, Merry Christmas. I hope it was worth it for you. Don't bother going home. I'm meeting with a lawyer on Monday about the divorce. You can't talk like that. I love you, but I don't want a divorce. I don't care what you want anymore. I said, I know the truth. I know why you didn't want me to go with you. I won't be your cook. Goodbye, Simone. I turned and left. One of the guys called out, Hey bro, are you leaving already? He asked, You know, you have a great wife. I'm glad you like her. I said, From now on, she is all yours. I changed out of my tuxedo, grabbed some garbage bags and started throwing her clothes and other things into them. I put them in her car and took her out of the garage. I removed the garage door opener and changed the code so she couldn't get back inside. By then it was about 2:30 a.m. I was exhausted. I went straight to bed and fell asleep instantly. The next morning I woke up to the phone ringing. I picked it up without thinking. Carl, it's me, I said. Please take me away from here. You're not my problem anymore, he replied. No, you don't get to decide that. If you have anything to say, you can say it through my lawyer. I really need to come and pick up your car from my parking lot. I've already packed all your stuff in it. She called back immediately, but I turned off my home phone. I had no desire to ever see her face or hear her voice again. I fell back on the bed and fell asleep. When I got up, I turned on the phone again. That day, after I was fine enough to think coherently, I looked and saw that her car was gone. I figured it must have finally dawned on her. I started searching online for a divorce lawyer and read everything I could find about divorce laws in our state. It was a public property state, but we didn't own any real estate, so that wouldn't be a problem. We didn't have children, so there would be no child support. She made the same amount, if not a little more than me, so I don't think there'll be any child support. I also found out that while most divorces in this state are no fault, There's a provision for filing a claim on the grounds of adultery, cruelty, or abuse. This would have made the divorce more expensive and taken longer to resolve, but I didn't care. After looking into it, I noted the number of a certain Jenny Hawkins, a lawyer, and decided to call her. I was taking my notes on Monday when my cell phone rang. I looked, but didn't recognize the number. I thought maybe Simone had used someone else's phone to call me, but it could be anyone, so I decided to answer it. Carl asked, and it was a female voice. I said, "Carl, this is Linda." The woman said, "I just wanted to let you know that Simone will be staying with me for a few days. Are you really going to get?" I said, "Yes, it's true that she's getting a divorce." Linda said that she's in her room crying her eyes out. "I'm afraid she'll have a nervous breakdown." "I don't care." I said, "She brought this on herself. Do you really have no feelings for her at all? It's all over between us publicly, but she still loves you, Linda." She said that's what she says. I said, "Tell me what she did after I left. How long did you two stay in the penthouse? Did she have sex with Ben and Dale again?" She was upset. Linda said, "We were all like that. You don't answer my questions." I said, "Okay." She said, "Yes. We all had sex last night after you left, but only to help someone feel better. You could have. If only you had stayed. I had a good time, but it would have been better if you were there. I have to go. Goodbye." That's when I noticed 2 text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. The messages arrived early this morning after I went to bed. I opened them and noticed that they had videos attached to them. I missed such a party. I watched the video and saw 3 men in the penthouse. I recognized Ben and Dale, but not the third one. Linda was there too, naked, watching what was going on. A man I didn't know looked into the camera and said, "What a wife you have, bro." He grinned and added, "It's a shame you weren't here." They all laughed when he said that. Simone laughed. "Exactly. So much for all the love you have for me." The second video was similar, but it ended with Ben ejaculating on my wedding ring while Simone held it in her open palm. My hatred for her only grew. I transferred the videos to my computer and made a copy for my lawyer. I thought about sending the video to all her friends. I thought about contacting her family and friends, but decided against it for now. The information I received from Jenny's website indicated that I needed to be very careful in how I responded to her actions. Any negative reaction on my part could easily ruin my case. Her website warned that I should be careful. I decided to hold off for now. I didn't hear anything from Simone or Linda that day or the next, which was a good thing from my point of view. I spent the rest of the weekend getting rid of any trace of Simone in the apartment. On Monday, I called my boss and explained the situation. I also took a few days off, knowing I'd be pretty useless. My boss had been through a divorce from an unfaithful wife, so he understood how I felt. I called Jenny's office and made an appointment for that afternoon. On the way to the appointment, I stopped at. I also went to the bank and did everything I could to get her out of our joint account. I paid off her joint credit card and then canceled it. I withdrew half of everything and opened a new account in my name only. Jenny explained the divorce laws in our state and asked if I would like to file an alienation of affection lawsuit against her boss. She said that it might not go very far, but there was always a chance. Given the evidence I had, I told her to do what she thought was best. "Where would you like them to be notified?" she asked. I told her I wanted them to experience some of the same public humiliation that they had subjected me to. She nodded her head and made notes. When we finished, I paid the advance and headed home. On the way, Linda called. "Hello," I said. When I picked up the, "Carl, could you meet me and Simone somewhere this afternoon?" she asked. I said, "I just finished meeting with my lawyer, and she advised me to stay away from her if she has something to say." "She can do it through my lawyer. Do you need her contact information?" Wait, I could tell she had one hand over the phone and I could hear her talking to someone, but the voices were muffled. A few minutes later, it turned on again. "That's enough," she said quietly. After I gave her Jenny's contact information, she tried to advocate for Simone one last time. "She really loves you, Carl, and she is ready to make amends. Can't you please find the strength to forgive her?" "Well, she has a funny way of showing her affection," I said. "How exactly is she going to make amends to me? Can she turn back time a year? I don't think so. The answer is no. I will never forgive her for what she did." "Okay, if that's what you want," I said. "I'll give this to her, but you know that someday you will have to talk to her." Not if I don't have to. I got a pack of beer and a couple of packs of cigarettes. I quit smoking when we first got married, but I felt like I needed to do something to stop myself from punching holes in my walls. Shortly after I got home, the house phone rang. I answered, wondering who was calling. "Hello," I said. "This is Ben Carlson. You're Mr. Jacobs' wife's employer, right?" "Yes," a young male voice said. I recognized the voice from the party. He seemed to adopt a more professional tone now that he was back. "I know who you are, Ben." I said, "What do you want?" "Look, I know you're upset about what happened on Friday, and I want you to know that we all thought you were okay with your wife's actions at the company meetings." He said, "So you knew all this time that she was married?" I asked, "Yes." He said, "But to be fair, she told us that you guys had an open marriage and that you were fine with what she was doing, and you never bothered to ask me about it." I asked. "I didn't think I should have done it." He said, "What about the videos you guys sent me on Friday night?" I asked, "What was wrong with that?" "The videos were her idea." He said, "Look, I'm really sorry about all of this. Is there anything I can do to make it up to you?" I said, "You can let me kick you in the groin the middle of next week after you testify against her in court." I also said, "I'm going to sue you for alienation of affection. You'll accept my terms without any objection, right? Anything else? Are you really suing us?" "Yes, I am, especially since you've been violating your own moral standards for the past year by destroying my marriage. It was all just for fun, man. We didn't mean to ruin your marriage." "Well, what do you think was going to happen?" "I think you've read too many stories on the internet." "Listen, man, we can handle this." Ben pleaded. "Such a lawsuit could ruin us. It's not my problem." I said, "You shouldn't have turned my wife into your problem." I hung up the phone and grabbed a beer, and then headed out to the balcony to smoke. I didn't hear anything from the traders until Wednesday, when they were notified at Simone's office. "I don't believe you actually did it." Linda said you didn't even give her a chance to explain. "Do you have any idea how humiliated she is right now?" "I really don't care. I said she didn't care that she was humiliating me by cheating on me. So I just don't care." "Goodbye, Linda. Don't call here again," I added, throwing down the phone. God, it felt so good. A few moments later, I received another call. I recognized the number. It was from Ben's office. "What?" he hissed. I'm going to sue you for that. You should have thought about the consequences of your actions. I'm going to make you regret this." I hung up and called Jenny to tell her about Ben's threat. She said she'd file a motion for a temporary restraining order against Simone and her accomplice. "I'll make sure you receive a copy of the order. Remember what happened. I told her not to do anything stupid. What if he comes to me?" I said, "Make sure you have witnesses and don't provoke anything." She said she understood. Later that day, there was a knock on the door. Jenny had applied, and the courier just delivered my copy. I decided to play it safe and bought a small motion-activated camera to film my living room. I also had a good bat next to the front door just in case. I decided that if Ben or his associates were going to carry out their threats, I needed to have something as proof, and I needed some kind of defense. The situation remained the same. Things were relatively calm until the end of the week. I was lucky that I didn't hear anything from Linda Simone or her boyfriend until Saturday evening. I was sitting on my balcony with a beer and a cigarette when I heard the doorbell ring. This was followed by a knock. I put out the cigarette and walked over to the door. I went into the front room and looked out the door peephole. Sure enough, it was Ben and I could see someone next to him. The knocking continued, so I opened up Jacobs. "I hear you there inside. Open up so I can kick your ass. You're violating a restraining order." "I'm calling the police right now, Ben." I called on my phone. He shouted, "Open it now." I told the 911 operator what was going on. We got a couple of calls in the area and sent a couple of patrol cars too. The operator said, "In the meantime, don't open the door until the officers arrive." "Thank you," I said before ending the conversation. The knocking continued, and I began to wonder if he was going to break down the door. I gripped the bat tighter and waited. "Open it before I break down the door," I said. "Damn door," he yelled, pounding on the door. I heard some noise and looked through the peephole. I saw two very large police officers handcuffed, with Ben and another man next to them. One of the officers knocked on my door. The police said the officer I opened the door and saw two men in handcuffs. Ben looked at as the officer led him back to his patrol car. He yelled, "I'm not done with you yet, weakling." He added, "I'm going to come back and kick your ass." I looked back at the officer and said, "You know this person?" He nodded and showed me a copy of his order. He read it and said something into his walkie-talkie. "Let's go to the city center. They're going to spend the night with us." He took notes while I told him my story. "Thank you for your cooperation. I don't think Heck will be giving you any trouble for a while. Read the short story below." It didn't go into detail, but I had a feeling this was just the beginning of his downfall. Over the next few days, more articles appeared saying that a number of clients were leaving the company. It seems their customers felt they couldn't trust a company that was ruining their employees' marriages. This affected the company's bottom line. I returned to work the following Monday. It was difficult, but I managed to get some work done, but I didn't hear anything from anyone for about 3 weeks. Then Jenny called me. "Good morning," she said. "How are you holding up?" I said, "Is there any news from Simone?" "Yes," she said. "She hired a lawyer, and they went to court asking for marriage counseling. The judge agreed and scheduled 6 hearings starting this week." I asked, "Can they do this?" "Yes," she said. "It would be beneficial for you to appear here if you don't do this. The judge can. They could even charge you with contempt of court and put you in jail." I told her I understand, but you still need to show up. If the lawyer sees that there is no hope for reconciliation, she will inform the judge about this. "Okay," I said. "Is there anything else?" "Yes," said Jenny. "Her lawyer told me that Simone is pregnant. If this is the case, then the court will do nothing more until paternity is established, so I have to wait another 8 or 9 months." I asked, "At the moment, yes." Jenny answered, "If it is your child, you will be ordered to pay child support." However, on a positive note, the judge agreed to a legal separation, at least until she gives birth. "Wonderful," I said. Jenny gave me the consultant's address and wished me luck. I wrote down this information and put it on my calendar. I decided that I'd made it clear that there was no way in hell I would put up with a cheating when I got to the consultant's. I was led inside the office by the receptionist, who was a slightly older woman wearing glasses. Simone was sitting opposite her in a love seat, looking unhappy. I had a bad feeling about this. The consultant, Dr. Abigail Farnsworth, introduced herself and indicated that I should sit next to Simone on the sofa. I chose to sit on a smaller wooden chair positioned at a 45-degree angle to the love seat instead. "Good to see you could come, Mr. Jacobs," she said. "I understand that I have no choice," I said, crossing my arms over my chest. "That's right," she said. "I'm glad to see you here." Turning to Simone, she said, "Mrs. Jacobs, what do you hope to get from these sessions?" "I want to be with my husband again," she said. "We're going to have a baby, and I want to be a family again." I snorted derisively when she said that. Abigail looked at me and asked, "What do you hope to get from these sessions, Mr. Jacobs?" "What I want is for you to understand," I said, nodding my head towards Simone. "I saw her coil when I did this." Abigail nodded her head even for the sake of the child. She asked me, "Honestly, do you think this is my child?" I said, "If by some miracle this happens, I will pay child support and do everything in my power to become his father, but I will never reconcile with her." She said, "Even for the sake of the child?" I took out my phone and showed the videos. I sent them to Abigail. She was pretty upset by what she saw when the video ended. I put my phone back in my pocket. "I see you're married, doctor. If it were your husband in these videos and not her, would you want to make peace? What if you found out that he did this to you for over a year and actually did it in front of you? Would you make peace then?" "It's not about me," she said. "This concerns you too, and now you have something to think about." I said, "This isn't the right doctor." "I have a young child to think about," she replied. "I don't believe her child is mine. In fact, I'd be willing to bet on it." "I'd like to get some answers from her," I said. Abigail thought for a moment, then nodded her head and looked at Simone. "I think he's entitled to some answers," she said. Simone lowered her eyes in embarrassment, and her face burned with embarrassment. She finally looked up at me before answering, "I think so." She told me, "You've got the floor." I nodded my head in gratitude and turned back to Simone. "Do you remember that night at the party? You knew what was going to happen, didn't you?" I asked. She nodded her head yes and said, That's the real reason you didn't want me to go with you, isn't it? I nodded my head in agreement. I tried to warn you that you wouldn't have fun at all, and you were right, I said. That was the most terrible night of my life when you kissed me at the party. You made sure I could taste those 2 men in your mouth when you did it, didn't you? Her face turned red for a moment. Yes, I did it on purpose. Why? Because I deserved it. You didn't do anything. We just thought it would be vicious and exciting. So you were all planning to humiliate me, right? I asked. And you intended to humiliate me even more at Ben's house, didn't you? Yes, and yes again. I asked her if she'd been having sex with these guys. She said she'd been pretty much from the time she joined SNG. I asked her if she liked it. She said yes, it was fun and it was mischievous and exciting. They made her feel sexy. I asked her how many times she'd given me a few seconds or kissed me afterwards. She said she didn't know. I felt like I almost vomited, but I managed to control myself. I asked her how many men she'd had sex with since she'd started working. I said, "They're not counting me." "I don't know," she said. "Maybe 4 or 5 dozen." 4 or 5 dozen? I asked in shock. "Have you had sex with 48, 60 other men in the last year?" "My God, woman, are you completely crazy? Have you heard about sexually transmitted diseases? Were you trying to kill me with something? Do you even know who the father of this child is?" "Not," she said. "But you expect me to collect the money and pay for it, don't you?" "You're a true master of your craft," I said. "You know that, but I love you," she said quietly. "Well, I don't love you," I said, and my anger grew. "In fact, right now I hate your guts and hope you rot and die of AIDS." They both looked at me in shock. Simone looked like she was about to cry, but I didn't care. In fact, I wanted to hurt her even more with my words and started to say something else, but Abigail stopped me. "That's enough, Mr. Jacobs," she said. "You expressed your point of view. I see you're determined to. I didn't throw anything away." I said. "She did just that the first time she cheated on me with another man. And these were not the best 5 years. Maybe 4, last year. She wasn't really my wife. You heard her over the past year. She has slept with 48, 60 men. She doesn't even know who the father of her child is. No, I will never ever come to terms with this." "Okay, I think we've heard enough." Abigail said she wanted to have a session with each of us individually, and then we'd continue. We made an appointment for next week and left. I heard Simone call out to me as we reached the car park, but I ignored her and walked to my car. When I drove off, I saw that she was leaning over the steering wheel, sobbing. I thought, let her feel a little pain for once. That evening, I received a call from someone who was very angry. "Linda, I hope you're pleased. Simone is in the hospital. Linda said she had a miscarriage. She told me what you said and how you treated her. So, what do you want, sympathy?" I just told the truth, which is a lot more than she did last year. I said, "Didn't you hear what I said?" Linda asked, "Your wife is in the hospital. Don't you care?" I said, "Oh my God, you're a bastard," she said quietly. "Well, guys, you only have yourself to thank for this. The least you can do is go downstairs and give them your insurance information." She said, "Legally, she's still your wife, and you'll still end up getting the bills." I went to her room and spoke with the nurse. I gave them my insurance information and spoke briefly with the doctor. "Do you have any idea what caused this?" I asked the doctor, who shook his head. "There are a number of things that can happen during pregnancy." "How long has she been pregnant?" I asked. "I would say maybe 9 or 10 weeks. He said this meant that it was entirely possible that the child could be mine. However, I will never know. However, it didn't matter as far as I understood. Her miscarriage only meant that the divorce could go ahead." "How is she doing?" I asked. "She's fine," the doctor said. "I want to keep an eye on her for a bit, but she should be able to come home in about a couple of hours." "Thank you," I said before entering her room. She looked terrible, lying in bed. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Linda stood at the foot of her bed. "You happy now?" She spat at me. "Shut up," I growled. Linda backed away from me before leaving the room. I looked at Simone. "I think it's really over between us, isn't it?" she asked. I nodded my head yes. "That's true," I said. "Do you really hate me as much as you said this morning?" she asked. "Right this second, no," I said. "But I will never take you back. You have proven that I can never lose sight of you. Every time you went, you proved that. I'd sit at home and wonder if you were having sex with the checkout clerks. I just can't get past your blatant disrespect. I've treated you like a queen for all these years. Did I do something to make you turn away from me? You were the best husband and lover a girl could ever dream of. Or you could tell those clowns to off. She said it wasn't me. They brought out the in me. They told me that every guy wants to see his wife by other men. I guess I just bought into it. I saw other girls doing this and thought, why should I miss out on all the fun? That's all there was to it. It was just fun. I said, it's all fun and games until the spouse finds out. I waited a few moments before continuing. Look, divorce will still happen no matter what. You're just wasting your time and money. End this farce and move on. I'm sorry, but I'm not taking you back. I'll tell my lawyer tomorrow, and don't ask if we can be friends. I don't see that happening. I'm really sorry. I looked at her for a few moments and then I left. Simone, as I was leaving, I heard her crying. I thought, good riddance. A few days later, Jenny called. She was true to her word. Simone dropped all her objections to the divorce. Abigail wrote a report saying that reconciliation was impossible. However, she included a suggestion that I take an anger management course. The judge agreed and made the same recommendation. However, she did not formalize it as an order. About a month later, she did so. Later on, Jenny was able to receive compensation from the insurance funds as well as from Ben & Dale. She handed me the biggest check I've ever seen in my life. Of course, that's minus my fee. I cashed the check and moved on with my life. It was either SG or Sodom and Gomorrah, as I tend to think of them. It closed its doors after about 6 months. It seems that its clients felt they could not trust the company with their money. I wonder why I asked myself that. It was ironic that I never heard from Ben & Dale again after that day at the apartment. They both spent 30 days in county jail for their stunt and apparently didn't want to go back. Their reputation in the community was damaged, so they left for greener pastures on the West Coast. Simone and Linda continued to live in the same apartment and eventually began working in a retail store. I saw those shops selling women's clothes and cosmetics from time to time, but I never paid them much attention. I remained single and dated periodically for the next 2 years. I finally met Claire Hansen, who'd recently divorced. We dated for several months, taking it slow and casual. Like me, she was burned by her husband's betrayal and was still suffering from it. I understood her. I was there for her during those first few weeks, supporting her through everything. We spent a lot of time talking or going out to dinner and a movie. She was a little more fragile than I was at the time, so we spent a lot of time holding hands and walking through the park. I really liked her and decided to let her make the first move. One evening, after a delicious lasagna in her apartment, she looked at me as if she were examining a specimen under a microscope. "Microscope, do you find me attractive?" she asked. I smiled and looked into her face. "I find you very attractive," I said. "In many ways, not just one." "Why do you ask? I'm just wondering." "You never pestered me. I was starting to think that maybe you don't like girls." "Oh, I really like girls," I said. "It's just that I think once you've been burned, you blow on the water twice." "I can understand that." "But we are not all like your ex." "That's right," I said. "Not all of us are like your ex. Husband, I just wanted to say that I believe in the sanctity of marriage." She smiled. "I know you do. I hope you understand that I feel the same way." "I understand. So what are you going to do with this little information? Do you think you could do more than just kiss me on the cheek? Where would you like me to kiss you?" She slowly lifted the dress at the waist. I saw that she was not wearing underwear. I felt excited. She gave me a passionate smile. "Well," she asked. I smiled. "Oh yes, everything definitely looked good.